Okay, everybody, so now we're finally at the point where we're going to start making chord progressions, okay? They're all based on stuff that we've been doing ever since the midterm, which is basically taking the scale and figuring out what note goes with each number of the scale, and then instead of just making an interval or counting an interval above it, we're going to create a triad. Triad just means that there are 3 notes in each chord, okay? So a triad in first position, that's what we're looking at first. And if you look at on the slide, it says, what is a chord? When 3 or more notes are sounded together. So a triad is different, it's only 3. Also, it has to consist of a root, a third, and a fifth, okay? So that means exactly what it says, a root, a third, and a fifth, the intervals above that root note, okay? So the root is the note which gives the triad its name. So the lowest note is the name of the actual triad or chord. So let's look at this when we have a scale, okay, which is what they start with, which is C major. So first, in order to figure out a C major primary chord progression, first we just make a C major scale, okay? We only have to go to the number 5. We don't have to do all 8, but I put them up here just so you could see, okay? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay? That's the first thing to do. Then you don't need these, okay? The next thing that you need to do is to erase 2 and 3 because they're not important. We just need the first, the subdominant, and the dominant, okay? So we're just going to get rid of number 2 and number 3. The next thing we have to do is turn these into triads. So if you're on a line, they will all be lines. If you're on a space, it will all be spaces. Okay? And I call this stacking the burgers. Okay? So once you've stacked the burgers on the first, the fourth, and the fifth note of the scale, then you can call them by their names. So this is a 4, this is a 5 chord. Okay? And generally we go back to the tonic, which is a 1. Okay, so that sounds like so. Okay, so C major, F major, okay, so once we know where they are, now we can spell the chord, okay? And when you spell the chord, that means you're giving it a name, okay? So I'm going to put these down here so they're out of the way. How do you spell a chord? You look at the root, okay? If it's a C major chord, it's a C major chord. So we're going to call it C. Here's an F, so we're going to call it an F. Here's a G, we're going to call it a G major. And then we're back to C major. Okay, so this works for any key that you need to figure out a chord progression in. The main thing is you have to find the lowest note on the scale, okay? So if you're doing G major here, right, start with the lowest G. Don't try to start up here, okay? This is in bass clef, so mostly or many times we do chord progressions in bass clef because that's where our left hand is playing on the piano. So I'm going to do the exact same thing. Okay, this time I'm going to put the numbers down here. What do I do now? Erase the rest of it. Okay, What don't I need? 2 and 3. What do I need? 1, 4, and 5. And then I'm going to put 1 back. Okay, what do I do now? Stack the burgers. Okay, the last part of this is spelling the chord. So where do I look? I'm going to look at the lowest note in the chord, and that is the name of that chord. So the lowest note here is a G. So this is a G major. This is a C, C major. This is a D, and this is a G. Okay, so that is a G major chord progression. Just remember, G major has 1 sharp, so I'm going to have to play it. It sounds like this. Right, there's G, there's D, okay, primary chord progressions.